Montana Creek Trail. How long is that?
Well, it's just wilderness access. In fact, because of that moraine area, see where that steep slope is changing angle? Just a little bit there, it's kind of hard with the trees. It's a wildlife corridor, so anything moving across this mountain, they don't want to go on the steep slope or to the river, so they run across it. So it's an old trail. This has been here for probably thousands of years.
Thank you.
Welcome. Don't think we need extra hats and stuff. We'll just run if it starts sailing or hide under a tree. Okay, just kidding. It's gonna be awesome. Perfect day, guys. You know, it's so variable in spring, but when the weather's good, it's really worth coming.
We've been told that we've become part of the 1%ers.
Oh.
That have seen Denali, 4-acre, and Hunter, totally in the clear on consecutive days.
Yeah. Well, like I say, that's the percentages are always misleading me because they're talking about like the whole season. And here, if you came in March, you can see it every day, almost the entire month, right? The warmer it gets, the cloudier it gets around those cold mountains because warm air carries more. Oh,
Got a bike coming.
let's just wait. Okay, thanks. All right, real quick, a couple of things. Yeah, there's a lot of that around. Like I said, this is a wildlife corridor. A real quick lesson in polling, and anytime I stop, which especially initially it will be often, if you guys all just bunch up close, I won't have to holler back there to you. But so a couple of things about the poles. In order to use them right, they really need to be the points behind your feet and the handles pointed forward. All right, if you stick them out in front of you and push, now they're actively working against you. Worse than just carrying them around, you're working against yourself. So put them that way. It's like grabbing a handrail and pulling yourself up. So you pull yourself to your waist. Watch out for the guy in front of you, or give that person enough room to where they can't accidentally stab you. Turning so green. Somebody's coming down here. You guys, come on down. This is an area and a plant that y'all have seen a lot of, maybe you didn't recognize, but from ocean to Arctic, alder thickets grow where there's very, very poor nutrients. Hi.
How are you folks today?
Good, what a day, huh?
It is beautiful.
I know.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your hike.
Any lions and tigers and bears?
Oh my.
Oh my.
Squirrels.
Squirrels are good.
That's okay.
All right.
So this is a first phase succession plant. Yeah, after like the rivers flood, you get this stuff growing because it can fix its own nitrogen. Nothing eats it, and not much else grows around it. So alder, we're not going to spend a lot of time in it, but I thought I'd point it out because you will see it for miles on steep slopes. Just thick green carpet looks like, but it's 6 to 10 feet tall, right? So alder is dioecious. It's got both male and female parts, and like a peanut, it has a bacterial colonies that fix nitrogen.
Okay.
kind of cool the way that works. And important in this environment, which is super nutrient poor, right? That's one of the things we're going to explore as we walk, how poor these soils are compared to most places. Down here, there are some understory. This is all berry producers. These are currants with their little tiny petalless flowers. All, you know, they're flowers, but they don't want to lose moisture, so their petals are almost gone. And then the bluebells are popping out, which is good because they're tasty. The road did most of the work, but we'll hit that marine level here in another, little ways. Y'all seen any moose?
Earlier.
You did see some?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time of year to see them because, especially mamas and mamas with calves, they like to use people as defense of those calves, right? So moose and people, they're simpatico. In fact, highest density of moose in all of Alaska is Anchorage because of, well, less predation, as I mentioned. Wolves and bear, they don't like people so much. So they spread out and leave, and then they'll come right back in when people are gone. But also the roads. Roads are really the best habitat in all of Alaska for moose.
Easy to walk on.
Easy to walk on, you got it. Less predators. And then finally, those drainage ditches are filled with fast-growing young willows, which is their primary food source. And when it gets old and tough, you mow it down, right? So it's constantly young stuff. Really, really fresh, and they can walk for miles to get it. So those moose will spend pretty much their whole life within a mile of the road. It's a good life for them, even with the ones that get killed. You see a lot of the scat here. I know it seems gross picking it up, but some of this stuff has been here for a decade or more. It's no dirtier than the leaves, and even fresh, it's not smelly, it's not soft, it's sawdust, because this is wintertime scat. These little nuggets you see all over the place is when they're eating twigs, which they've been doing non-stop for whatever, 9 months.
Now that it's all dried out, I mean, all the pathogens have died anyway.
Right, there's no
Pathogenic bacteria.
no danger to that. But so they last for a long time here, as does the wood. Things like there's a spruce tree. You guys will be able to tell every tree in this forest at the end of the hike. Of course, there's only 5 genus, so it's good to be a naturalist in Alaska, right? Take a look at the ground.
It's a black spruce, right?
Oh my.
This probably is a black spruce. This is a mixed forest, so we're going to have both. And what I'm looking at is primarily white spruce. This one I can't tell from underneath.
So the ground, why does it do that? Is that permafrost?
That is because all of the plants grow here in a tundra-like fashion. Yeah, right? The entire tree. It's not just this tree, all of it. If I were a giant, I could grab a handful of them and peel it back like carpet. And you saw it hanging over the road cut. None of it's attached. So that, in that way, this forest is different than your garden at home. There isn't a layer of soil here with humus, you know, earthworms. I mean, we have those things, but they're in small amounts. Instead, the way all of the tundra and this northern forest on the north side of the Alaska Range grows is through nutrient flow in the water. And the water comes from mainly melting ice. So we'll talk about that more when we can see it. But as you walk, you know, it's a huge forest, but it's all in the top of 1 foot. Roots. Oh, and speaking of roots, if you're gonna slip, it'll be on a root. So watch those. Yeah.
So is the spruce considered to be a pine tree of some kind?
Yeah, well, spruce and pine are related. They're both pollen producing conifers, but they're not in pine. They're spruce, and there's a lot of different spruce. Black spruce, spruce leaf. I don't know why they're all colored, but that's how it goes. Then we've got a few of these. So maybe, which way, I guess y'all came from both directions probably, Fairbanks and Anchorage?
We came from Anchorage.
Right, that's what I figured. So both doesn't really matter because both directions you come from, there's a month longer growing season than there is here. So you may notice we're pretty brown up high, and just last week it was brown down here too. So this is all happening really fast because our season is short and because we're Arctic-like in the number of growing days. So the animals, Denali was set aside to preserve. The Dall sheep, by far most live in the Arctic. These are Arctic animals, caribou, really Arctic animals. This habitat is just much more accessible as we're hundreds of miles south of the Arctic. So it's a narrow strip along the north side of the Alaska Range that attracts those animals, and then they put the road right through it, east-west river, from this unbroken slope just straight down. Out there you can see the mixed forest, but much of the land has no deciduous trees. You see that? Especially there's a distinct patch behind the Wilderness Access Center. So when the fire started at the railroad there, it kind of went uphill a little bit and came down here, and the wind was coming out of the valley. It burned all this side more. The deciduous forest marks where the fire was. And it did, you know, fire doesn't burn everything. Not all, everywhere you see deciduous forest, because aspen trees, like these, well, they live on bluffs anyway. So every time you see a deciduous tree, I don't want you to say, oh, that burned. But in this case, we know that. That long ridge opposite us is another moraine. It would have been a medial moraine. Two glaciers came together and dragged that whole long ridge. It's the same elevation we are, right? So that shows us that the glacier, that would have been sticking up right across, about 1,000 feet here.
So there's another lateral moraine beyond that.
Right. Well, I don't know if you can see it. Up in that flat, kind of rounded slope, there's a dark block, a piece of granite the size of a cabin.
Big erratic?
Yeah, that's a big erratic, right? So the glacier came down and 3 glaciers met here. So this was a massive meeting point, and then it all crammed its way through. I point that out because it's hard to imagine this area full of ice.
Yeah.
And when you do, you realize the scale of it was huge, but not compared to the rest of the landscape. Y'all have heard of the Bering Land Bridge, I'm sure. Well, now you're in it, right? 12 miles north for most of my life, the oldest evidence of human inhabitants was in Healy, just 12 miles north of here, because that was the end of the ice, right? They came up and they hunted against that glacier. I'm sure the caribou were hanging out on the ice all summer, and that was it. The ice continued all the way to New York City from here, but it was over 5,000 feet thick on the other side of this range. That's because here we get less than 20 inches of precipitation, and there's never the amount of snow to build up the giant ice sheets. This ice that I was talking about here, it flowed from the south. That much bigger ice sheet pushed through the mountains from south to north, and that's why our river does that, right? South to north rivers are not very common in the United States, certainly not cutting right. Lynch Creek. Not because there's a lot of links here, but because they named all the fruit on the better fruit coming through the canyon. So yeah, those bison, California dragonflies. So the moose come up here and they're eating all. Like I said, they like the young. They like the young plants. They like the fast-growing switches. So they don't eat most of that. Just the new growth that comes out each summer, and they eat it back down in a place like this.
We haven't seen a tree like this before.
No, I know. It's magnificent, right? Just goes to show. Same tree. Great places. Yeah, that's a white spruce.
That's a white spruce.
Yeah. Spruce are also dioecious, so they've got both the male pollinators and then the cones, which they keep really only at the top. So they don't drop cones like pines do.
Are there something that are edible?
The spruce tips will be edible after these grow, but no, these will be full of pollen. They'll put yellow dust out all over everything.
Sun's over there, so try to shoot
Flowers.
Can you oil the leaves to make a tea?
Yeah.
You definitely can eat the spruce tips when they start growing, coming out. As far as like the old ones, I don't think so. The spruce grouse eat them, but no, the natives would definitely eat It'll soon have little. They look yellow. There'll be little yellow nubs all over it, and like that one looks like that is, and that it's a little woody, but it's certainly not like the rest of it.
Did you just eat that?
I just ate a little spruce tip. They're high in vitamin C, so
Okay, if they do it.
yeah, sure.
Taste it, baby.
It is a conifer. It's not going to be.
It tastes like a pine tree.
It's not going to be something you're really eating a bunch of. But if you've been starved for vitamin C, you can taste that little tang.
You just eat the tip?
Yeah, just
Little.
Well, not those. Oh, that might be one. Yeah, that's one. Yeah. I know. So now you know every tree in the forest. Yeah, that's a spruce. The white spruce.
I can see how you could eat those.
Here, evidence of a fox. Fox scat. It's all hair, snowshoe hair. Or fur.
Are you from Alaska? Did you say yet?
I was born in Texas. I have a house in Healy, though. I live in Healy, at least about half the year, 6 to 7 months. But I go outside in winter.
Well, does your family in Texas disown you for coming up here?
Well, I don't know about disowning me, but I'm sure finding it a bit peculiar.
Because
My aunt, in fact, just came. She's 80. and she was on a cruise coming through, and I picked her up and took her around. She's just like, well, there's nothing here.
There's everything
do
here.
you like it here? Like, yeah, I like it. I really like it. And that, what I love the most about this land, I wish I could show you, but I can't, and that's the pace of change, right? We have 100 days, and all of this forest is going to bloom, grow, change colors, and be gone by mid-September, right? Nowhere does it change faster than here, except for the Arctic, right? Fairbanks is about a month longer growing season, and it's just so wonderful. More fox scat here. They like to mark their territory. See all the piles? So if you guys want to like be the boss, be my guest, but I'm going to walk on. Foxes are funny, you know. They just traipse about with people, with wolves, with coyotes. They just abide. Nothing seems to bother them.
This morning we saw a den of foxes in the park.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You did it have kits? Did you see the kits?
Yeah.
Oh, hooray. I love spring.
Bunch of elk, 2 grizzlies.
Caribou probably you meant,
Caribou, yeah.
because we don't have elk. Oh yeah, what? Look at that light. That's something y'all do get to see here coming this time of year, and that's just the remarkable solstice light. You know, it lasts for hours.
What's the trap line mean?
During the winter, probably about 10 years ago is the last time anybody did that. Somebody ran a trap line along this trail.
Okay.
So they were looking for fur-bearing creatures, probably primarily lynx,
Okay.
because it was 10 years ago that we last had our explosion of snowshoe hare. I'm sure y'all have seen quite a few hare. Very happily, they've come back now.